Previously on No Ordinary Monday.
My biggest fear of hitting the water was being knocked unconscious. The mains touched down and the whole plane bounced back up into the air, and then the nose grabbed, and then it just flipped onto its back. The first instance that I had that I might die was when the plane came to a stop, and there was an explosion of water, and my thought was, this is it, I'm going to drown. The raft was kind of moving away from the plane, and so I had to jump in the water and dog paddle over to the raft.
All right, so last week we left Heidi floating alone in the middle of the Pacific. Her aircraft had sunk into the depths below, and now her raft is the only thing that stands between her and 20,000 feet of water. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, hit pause now so you can go back in to listen to that first. It is very much worth listening to that to get the setup for what's about to come next. Night is coming, the weather is taking a turn for the worst, and rescuers face an impossible task of finding Heidi in a tiny raft in a vast ocean. And then there's a surprise twist that changes everything. I'm Chris Barron, and this is No Ordinary Monday. Just a very quick reminder to stick around at the end of the episode. I will be sharing our first ever listener story. So with that out the way, let's get into part 2 of Heidi Porch's extraordinary ordeal. So at that point there, how long did you think in your head, like, okay, I'll have rescue in an hour or two, I'll be fine, I'll just sit and chill out here and whatever. What did you think?
Well, this was 2 in the afternoon when I went in, and the last bit of information I had received was that they were going to dispatch a destroyer out of Pearl Harbor to come get me.
Wow.
And I was over 500 miles away from Honolulu.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that it would be over 24 hours at least, because
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I estimated the cruise speed on a destroyer is 25 knots or something like that.
Yeah.
I knew I'd be out there all night, and by the time the sun set, the weather was getting much worse. So by midnight, the swells were 10 to 12 feet.
And I mean, just to give us a picture of what's that like when you're in a raft, like, is it enough to think that a wave is just going to tip you over?
Yeah, I thought about every third swell or something, there'd be water that would spray, into the raft. And I thought, if it gets much worse than this, I'm probably going to capsize in half hour to an hour.
Oh,
And that'll
man.
be that. Yeah. So, fortunately, and I'm guessing on these times because my watch, stopped when I
During the crash, yeah.
But I noticed more airplanes were coming out instead of just one. Now there were 2 and 3, and they were dropping a line of flares. And then on the horizon, when I'd be on the top side of a swell, on the horizon was a very bright light that I could tell was a ship.
Yeah.
So they were leading this ship to me. And that took about 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And silly me, I thought, oh, it's just going to pull right up and pick me up, but they still couldn't see me. So they stopped about maybe half mile away. The ship stopped, and there's Coast Guard and Navy airplanes circling, dropping flares everywhere. And these flares would take minutes to get to the surface and just light up the sky. Now, fortunately, there was a full moon, so it was pretty bright out there. And there were 2 searchlights on the deck of this ship. And in my supplies, I had 1 handheld rocket flare.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to fire it if both searchlights were looking in the opposite direction. So I waited till both searchlights were pointed towards me. I was beyond the range of their light, but I fired the flare and the ship started moving away. And that was the worst of the whole thing, because I thought, I'm not going to make it another half hour. And well, they were just looking in another area. What I didn't know at the time, found out afterwards, was one of the airplanes that had checked on me during the day and had dropped a sonobuoy to keep track of me. He was going back to Hawaii to be done, and other airplanes would take over for him. Well, on his way back to Hawaii, he saw this ship, and he tried calling it on the common frequency, and they didn't answer. And so he marked its location on his map, and he went back and refueled. He said, I'm going back out because I know where this ship is, and I'm going to lead it to Heidi, and coordinated with some other airplanes. So he did, and he flew across its bow and started dropping flares, which is maritime emergency. So the ship turned around. They didn't know who they were looking for. Was it a cruise ship, an airline, or a sailboat? They're not talking to anyone, but they're following these flares over the course of hours. And one airplane would drop 2 or 3 flares, and then they'd have to circle till the ship could catch up.
Yep.
And then they'd drop more, and then they'd have to leave. Another airplane would take turns. Well, in the course of all of this back and forth, they were in touch with a U.S. ship, the USNS Meteor, and sending it to pick me up. So I know this gets confusing. So finally, here I am in the raft. I had fired my one flare. They started moving away, but they were just looking in different area. And all I had left was a whistle. It was packaged in the supplies. And I thought I heard the sound of a smaller engine, a launch. So they had put a launch in. Well, I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. I go, well, if I can hear that engine, maybe they'll hear the whistle. And so I blew the whistle. I thought my cheeks would rip open. And they homed in on the whistle, and they threw me a line, and I pulled it in, and they pulled me out of the raft and pulled my raft up, and we went down below. There was a little cabin, and there was a long bench along the side. Everybody's talking and shouting in a language I don't recognize. And I finally said, American. And he goes, Ruski. And I went, oh, shit. Excuse me.
Yeah. And for context,
this was the Cold War.
Yeah.
So we didn't share frequencies with the Soviets.
Yeah.
And that's why the Coast Guard plane or Navy plane could not talk to it, because we didn't share frequencies.
Yeah.
But yet they knew someone was in trouble, and they were just following flares. And and the American ship had been given the wrong coordinates.
Oh,
and they were 20 miles south of my position, following directions from the airplanes over me, saying, turn to the right. She's right in front of you. Turn to the right. She's right there. Turn to the right. And they finally said, we've done a 360-degree right turn. We don't see her. And that's when they're going, oh my gosh, what is going on? Who are they? And it was very confusing. So
it was the wrong ship.
Basically,
they were looking at the Russian vessel, thinking it was the American vessel.
Exactly, giving it direction, and they were 20 miles away.
Gee, so this Russian vessel, I guess it was just a merchant navy, or what were they doing there?
It was from what I could gather, it was a refrigeration vessel carrying produce.
Oh, okay.
And so they were headed for the Far East.
Man.
Yeah.
That must have been so surreal after such an ordeal to be pulled onto a Russian vessel. And were they...
Oh, yeah.
Were they friendly? Were they...
It was tense at first. And of course, I hadn't slept in couple of days by this time because I never
Yeah.
slept the night before a flight.
Yeah.
And, so fatigue and stress and all that.
Oh
And they
my
said,
God.
we're taking you to the Far East. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to end up in white slavery or, my parents will never hear from me again. And then, they were very businesslike at first. And, of course, when I got on board, I immediately was taken down to sick bay. And the doctor on board was a woman, and her name, Natasha, of
Yeah.
course. What else? And so she examined me and then gave me, she went to this medicine cabinet and pulled out a dark brown glass vial with a eyedropper, and she put like 10 drops of this, like, looked like iodine or something, in a
Yeah.
little bit of water. And she goes, here. And I'm going, no, I'm good.
I'm
And
good.
she,
Yeah.
you know, and so now I'm thinking, oh my God, it's some drug, it's some liquid form of sodium pentothal, and they're going to get my military secrets. And then it was like, Heidi, you don't have any military secrets, but
Yeah.
your brain just goes to crazy places.
Oh
So I
my
drank
God.
it. Now I'm waiting for the room to start spinning, and nothing.
Yeah.
But then I talked to the radio operator, and he was with the captain. The captain did not speak English, but the radio operator did. And that's when he told me, we're headed for the Far East and you're going with us. I go, well, can't you just drop me off in Hawaii? It's right on the way. And they go, no, yet.
Yeah. Russian
And,
vessel approaching American territory. Not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Not talking to anyone. And so after about, they took my clothes and gave me a sweatsuit to wear and let me take a bath and tried to give me some food. And I tried to say, no, I can't. If I eat this, it's going to come back up. And they were giving me some fried eggs and some really greasy, thick bacon and toast. And I knew I was going to throw up if I ate it. I found out later that when they're at sea, they would get like one egg a week.
Oh
And
my
they
gosh.
were
So this was
rolling out the
like,
red carpet for me,
yeah.
giving me 4, and I just kind of thumbed my nose. So I felt if I had known that at the time, I would have forced them down. But
Yeah.
no, they came back after like 45 minutes and said, we're in touch with an American ship. It's 20 miles from here. We're coordinating a rendezvous and we'll transfer you over. And then everybody relaxed because they didn't know who I was, what I was doing out there. It must have seemed very strange to them.
Amazing.
And then, they gave me some gifts and we drank vodka, and it was an app. I was kind of sorry to leave. I couldn't say that to anybody at the time because these are our mortal enemies, but
Yeah.
they couldn't have been nicer. And Natasha cried when I left, and yeah, it was pretty cool, pretty neat
I can
experience.
imagine. I mean, we're all human at the end of the day, right? It's kind of, really nice that everyone just accepted that here's someone in need. We help them out,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they liaised with the American vessel, and then you finally got on, and then that was you kind of big sigh of relief. I'm on the way home kind of now. Yeah.
Yeah. And it took probably around 28 hours to get to Pearl.
Yeah.
That's where they were headed. And
Amazing.
so it gave me some time I asked for some paper the next day, and I just wrote down everything I could remember about the last couple of days, and because I knew I'd forget as the years went on. And came into Pearl just before sunup. And of course, being a World War II buff, the captain let me come up to the bridge as we were coming into Pearl Harbor, and he told me all about, well, this is where the Japanese flew in on the first attack. And I mean, it was absolutely fascinating. It was really, really cool.
I mean, something like the malfunction or the issue that you experienced, I mean, How often does that happen on general to a pilot in their career, would you say?
Well, at the time, there were only in the United States, there were 3 companies, ferry companies that did this, and
Mm,
worldwide, maybe only 27 pilots that did it for a living.
wow.
I was on my 10th overwater delivery, which means about 60 ocean crossings.
Yeah.
Um, my best friend, mentor, someone that we probably would have gotten married. He flew
Wow.
for Transair also. He ditched on his 99th delivery within
Oh my
50
God.
miles of where I went in and died.
Oh
And
my
so,
God.
he had done almost 100 deliveries, and this was the first time. My wingman Earl, he ended up putting one in. Now,
Yeah.
he was able to get hold of a cruise ship going to Hawaii, and he was able to ditch the airplane on the downwind side. The ship turned sideways, so it caused smooth water, and he
Oh my
ditched
God.
there. And they had a boat in the water already, and he only got wet up to his knees and got a free cruise to Hawaii.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, that sounds
and
like
he
he
had been
planned it almost.
yeah, and he had been doing it, for 10 years,
Yeah.
delivering airplanes. So,
It happens, but
it
it's not that
wasn't,
common.
I'd say, uncommon, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, it's absolutely extraordinary story. I mean, but the thing is that I think for many people, um, that kind of experience might have grounded them, but not for you, as it seems.
No, I had absolutely no qualms about flying again. So a couple of weeks after I got back, um, I picked up an airplane in Wichita and flew it to California, but I flew over the interstates the whole way.
Yeah.
I was like, and then I'd go, wait, did the engine just kind of surge? Yeah, I was very hypersensitive,
Yeah.
but that didn't last long. But I lost most of my survival equipment in the ditching, and that's your own responsibility.
Mm,
Um, and I would have done another overwater flight just to get back on the horse, but I found out from a dear friend of mine that my parents absolutely hated me doing these flights, but they never told me
mm,
because they knew how important it was to me.
yeah.
And I thought, I don't need to do this again if it distresses them so much.
Yeah.
So it's time to move on. And so then I started looking for a job with a regional
Yeah.
airline and got a job in Denver flying Metroliners for Pioneer
Yeah.
Airlines, a
Like the
feeder
commercial kind of,
airline. Yeah. And that's a
yeah.
natural stepping stone onto the major airlines.
Man, it's crazy.
So,
So it's probably an unusual route compared to a lot of your colleagues
yeah, right. Correct.
that kind of went the traditional route. Oh my God, that is
Right.
extraordinary. You obviously that experience, didn't ground you. You got into commercial flying, regional stuff, and then the bigger stuff, and then large aircraft, and I guess you know that kind of incident and emergency. Like, did you have anything? Like maybe not that scale, but did you have anything as a commercial airline pilot that kind of was an emergency or something that was a bit like hairy?
Yeah. The biggest, well, there's always minor malfunctions that occur, um, whether it's in your hydraulic system or electrical system, or maybe a generator goes offline. But, you've got so many redundancies in
Yeah.
the airlines that there's always backups and that. And the training is exceptional
Mm.
with the airlines. But I guess the biggest thing that happened to me was on a flight on the 747. And we, our route was from JFK, New York to Tokyo. And it's a long flight, it's over 12 hours. And so you are at your max gross takeoff weight, which was 870,000 pounds. You're
Oh
really
man.
heavy.
Yeah.
And it was my turn to fly. I was first officer, right seat. We had 4 pilots in the cockpit. And if you've been to JFK, you know, the runways are right close to the water.
Mm.
And so we were taking off and we're rolling down the runway. And way off in the distance, in the middle of the runway, I can see some seagulls. And normally it's not a big deal. They fly off before you get close to them. But I'm building up speed, 100 knots, checks, 120, 140. And I go, guys, the birds are not moving. And now Captain says, V1, rotate. We're committed. And just as I lift the nose up, I hear there was this very rapid vibration. Well, obviously, we hit some seagulls. So we continue the takeoff. We didn't want to raise the gear because we didn't know if we had damaged the gear.
Mm.
And you're supposed to make a left turn right after takeoff. And the tower said, you know, start your left turn and, you know, your gear is still down. And we said, Roger, we hit some seagulls on rotation. Send a car out to inspect the runway before you let another airplane take off. And we went out over the water, climbed up to 5,000 or 6,000 feet in order to dump fuel so we'd be light enough to come back in and land. But we didn't know if we had damaged the gear, the flaps, the leading edge. So one nice thing about having an extra crew is the captain, one of the 2 captains, went down below, looked out the windows, inspected the leading edge of the wings. The flaps goes, we're good. So we raised the flaps and I'm continuing to fly. And this is something that you practice in the sim for years, you know, but hopefully it never happens in real life. The first officer who's sitting behind me, as I'm concentrating on flying the airplane, he's looking up at the engine instruments. He goes, look at the vibration monitor on number 2 engine. Well, obviously we had taken some seagulls through that engine, so we had to shut that engine down.
Jeez.
And I don't know if I should tell you this or not, but it was really fun because you do it in a simulator all the time. And it was so much easier in the airplane. It was like, okay, this is how we do it. And so we dumped fuel for 53 minutes, came back in and landed and came to a stop, went to the ramp area, stopped. I went outside, we did to inspect it. And the fan blades on the engines are made of titanium.
Mm.
And in the number 2 engine, it looked like somebody had just torn them. Like 5 blades, titanium. So we took 2 seagulls through the number 2 engine, and the nose strut hit the other 2 seagulls, and they hit right at a spot where there were hydraulic lines and landing lights and all this, and they didn't hit any of that stuff. They just hit the main part of the strut.
Yeah.
But so we were on the ground for 4 hours, and then we were airborne again on a different plane that was inbound. And they turned that one, and now we're going to Tokyo. It was a long day.
Yeah,
but that's the biggest thing that I had happen on mechanical. I've had people that died on a flight, you know, medical situation and stuff, where we've had to divert like into Anchorage to get them medical attention and, you know,
but
little
I mean, as a
there.
passenger on a plane, like I'm just imagining being a passenger sitting on that side of the aircraft and watching takeout out the window outside and go, that was unusual.
Is that supposed to happen?
Is that supposed to happen? Like, would they see like anything and then like freak out? Or
normally if it's a Well, they definitely hear something, and there was that vibration, so they'd
Yeah.
sense that. I don't know that there was much smoke coming out of the number two because we shut it down.
Yeah.
And there was no indication of fire or
Mm.
anything like that. So they probably really wouldn't have seen too much. They would have felt it. And of course, as soon as we can, first, number one, fly the airplane,
Yeah. Yeah.
and identify the problem, but try to make a PA and explain to people exactly what's going on. And hey, we practice this type of emergency all the time. And, even for people that you see videos that people take of, a fire or something.
Yeah.
Fire is a big deal on a plane, but 9 times out of 10, you can extinguish that fire. And people are under the misconception that if you lose an engine on a multi-engine jetliner, it's going to fall out of the sky. These airplanes can't be certified unless they can fly on one engine.
Mm.
And again, the redundancies of all the peripheral systems, it really is quite safe.
Yeah.
Very safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it is. I mean,
But if
statistics speak for
people,
themselves, don't they?
yeah, I tell people if they get anxious, try to sit as far forward as you can on a plane, because the furthest back, you feel like you're in a tube and you feel closed in and things are amplified. And so if you are nervous, try to sit forward. Also, most flight crews love it when passengers come up during boarding or deplaning. Stick your head in the cockpit, say hi. If you've got questions, hey, are we going to have turbulence on this flight or this or that? And, we love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't be shy about doing that.
But yeah, starting with, and I know that the flight crews are heavily trained and dealing with not just doing their jobs, the safety, but also dealing with people and nervous people and that as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, not just the passengers, but for aspiring pilots. I mean, these days, like what kind of, anyone listening to this and they're going, oh my God, even though, pilots doing cat emergencies, I would still love to do that job. Like kind of what is, through all your experience and all the amazing different aircraft and the different jobs you've had in the airline industry, have you got like a key piece of advice that you would impart to anyone that really wants to do that as a job?
The biggest piece of advice, and this is for in your early days when you're trying to accumulate your flight hours and get your ratings and I was fortunate enough to have a couple of mentors that were truly amazing. They were both retired airline pilots and that. And basically, they said, know your limitations. Okay. So if you end up in a situation, let's say you're doing one of your cross country flights that you need to check off in order to get your commercial license or your private, whatever. And there's some weather ahead and you go, well, it doesn't look that bad, and I can head over here where clouds don't seem to be, but you don't have an instrument rating yet. Know your limitations and honor that. And don't have get homeitis where, because it's when things happen in a plane, it's typically not one reason or one occurrence that gets you in trouble. It's little snowballing events that build and build. And so be aware of that. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you feel really uncomfortable, do not hesitate to ask for help because people want to help you. You just have to ask for it. So if you call for help and it turns out you didn't need it, great. But if you really need help and you don't ask for it till it's too late, yeah.
As a passenger these days, do you sort of judge Yeah, because you've so experienced. Do you judge the pilots? I can imagine.
Yeah, you can't help it. Like the ones that get me are when I'm on and I won't name any airlines, but
Yeah,
I'm on a regional or airline that they might do 6 legs in one day. So they're
yeah,
getting a lot of takeoffs and landings.
yeah,
And they'll come in and the weather will be fairly nice and they pound it on. I go, God, you're getting so many landed. Couldn't you land it a little bit smoother? So that always kind of gets me. But I do appreciate when I know if there's a really strong crosswind and
mm,
turbulence and the plane's coming in and the wings are rocking and I can tell the nose is not lined up with run, which tells you there's a strong crosswind and you want to touch down firmly on that. You don't want to float it because
yeah,
that'll drift you off the runway. So you want to plant. And on those landings, I always go up and say, that was a really nice landing. You had to work for that one, didn't you?
yeah.
And they go, yeah, I really did. And they appreciate that I can recognize that they had to work for it.
There
And
you
where
go.
a lot of passengers don't get that. And they go, man, you landed that one pretty hard. And you feel like
Yeah,
saying, if you only knew how difficult it was, but you can't say that.
there you go. Yeah, next time you're
Yeah.
on a flight and you give a good landing, give the captain some love. Give him
Yeah.
a
They
yeah,
really appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah,
Because they
fantastic.
try to do their best. And
Heidi, listen, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story. It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, what have you got to what have you been up to in terms of things people can find you? You've got some work coming out. Yeah,
well, after 40 some years, of friends and coworkers telling me that I really needed to write a book about my ferry flying days and that I finally did. Retirement gave me that opportunity.
amazing.
So I wrote a book. It's called Ditching the Sky. Can I hold up a
Yeah, yeah,
copy?
yeah. Please come. Yeah, yeah. For the video,
So
yeah.
it is
Yeah,
mostly about, my experience ditching in the ocean and that, but a lot of stories that we didn't have the time
yeah.
to go into. And I'm with a aviation speakers bureau, so I go around the country and give presentations and that for people that are interested in hearing my story and there's been some interest in making the book into a movie. So I'm working with a producer and a screenwriter right now. And we are ready to start knocking on doors and seeing if we can find a film company that'll take on the project.
That's so cool. Have you sort of thought
Yeah.
about or any wish lists for who would sort of play you in
Yeah.
a movie? That's kind of always a big question, but you actually have a
Yeah.
real opportunity to think about that.
My wish list, at top of my wish list for me is Florence Pugh.
Yeah. She's amazing.
And
Yeah.
she was in the latest Marvel movie, but she's done a lot of varied roles. Her acting
Yeah.
is just fantastic, and she's about the same age that I was, and I hear she has a little bit of daredevil in her, so this
I
might
heard
be a
that as well.
story
Yeah.
that would appeal to her, but she would be my first choice. Yeah, so I'm hoping somehow to get hold of her, her agent or something and see if she'd be interested.
That'd be
Yeah.
so cool. I mean, is there anywhere, have you got a website or anything that people can follow or for
I
updates?
that's my next project is to have a
There you go.
website, but if you just Google my name,
Yeah.
Heidi Porch, like on the front of a house, and some stories will come up about the ditching and then my book, information on that, and also the Aviation Speakers Bureau. They could
Yeah.
find me through that as well. But I'm hoping to have a website up in the next month or two.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
once you have it up, I'll put it on our website and I'll put a
Oh,
picture of
thank
the
you.
book and everything. And so if people are looking for more information, that'll all be on our website as well. So
Thank you
hopefully, fingers
so
crossed for a
much.
movie with Florence Pugh, that would
Yes.
be incredible. So yeah. Heidi, thank you so much again for you taking the time and sharing the story. It's been fantastic speaking with you.
Well, Chris, I really enjoyed talking to you. This has been fun. It's my first podcast visual. So
Is it? Oh, it's so
yeah,
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it
Um,
was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully it's not the last. I'm sure your story will be out there in many other ways, shapes, and forms. So look forward to that.
Great. Thank you so much.
And that is a wrap on this week's episode. A huge thanks to Heidi for being so open and sharing her story across these 2 episodes. And of course, a huge thanks to you all for listening as well. If tonight's episode left you wanting to know more about Heidi and her story, maybe getting in there before hopefully the Hollywood version comes out, fingers crossed, you'll find all of it in Heidi's book, Ditching the Sky. And there's links to Heidi's book and other photos and information that can be found on our website. That is noordinarymonday.com. We also have our socials. We are No Ordinary Monday on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, as well as some others as well, with lots of cool bonus stuff to check out there. And it's also where you can reach out to us with questions or feedback on the show. Now, a quick sneak peek into next week's episode. Since we are now in peak spooky season, my guest is world-renowned parapsychologist and paranormal investigator Lloyd Auerbach. For over 40 years, he has used credible scientific methods to try and understand psychic phenomena, hauntings, and other bizarre happenings. And plus, his big No Ordinary Monday story is all about the key case that convinced him that there is something beyond death. So hit subscribe now so you don't miss out on that episode. Now, as promised, before we finish, here is our very first listener story segment. It's not really so much of a listener story because it's one of my stories, but I thought I would go first just to give you guys kind of an idea of the sort of fun stories I love to share at the end of the show. So this story is basically from the early days of my career in television. I was a researcher at the BBC in London. And basically that's a researcher is someone who basically finds stories for a show, So this was basically a science show for the BBC. And one of the stories I was looking into was about the gut microbiome. And so basically we wanted to take our presenter and do like a genetic profile to see what kind of microbes were living in his gut. And I'd found a lab in Ireland that could do all this sort of, genetic processing and figure out what the microbes were in his gut. But of course, they needed a fecal sample, a poop sample from our presenter. The challenge was our presenter was in Boston, the lab was in Ireland, and I was in London. And we had about a week or so before the studio recording where these results were supposed to be presented. So I needed to find a way to get the presenter's poop sample from his hotel where he was in Boston to Ireland as fast as possible. I called FedEx and they wouldn't handle it. They said it was a biohazard or something. So I had to find like another specialist courier that handled like biological material. I had no idea of this stuff at the time. It was all sort of new to me. And then the second thing is I also had to find like this specialist piece of equipment or specialist kit, like a test kit for the presenter to sort of deposit his sample into sort of safely and securely for the transport. So this was all against the clock. I had like a matter of like a day or so to try and figure out this problem because of the time it took to get to the lab and do the processing and all that kind of stuff. But miraculously, I had found this company that had made these specific kits like 5 minutes drive from the presenter's hotel, and the guy on the phone was really nice. He basically said, yep, no worries, I'll take it down there myself, and hand delivered the kit to the hotel and the lobby. The presenter then did his business and the courier picked it up like an hour or two later, and it was shipped to Ireland. And then a few days later we got all the results for the recording. So it was just one of those experiences where I just sort of sat back once we had it all done, the problems were all solved and it went really well, thinking I sometimes have a very strange job, but I love it. It was so much fun. Okay, so that's it for the first story. If you have any fun or weird or interesting work stories, please send it in and I will read it out at the end of the episode. You can head to our website and click on the listener story tab, or you can just email me at hello, HELLO, at noordinarymonday.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please just do 2 really quick things for us. just click 5 stars. It just takes a second. And if you have time, leave a quick review and then tell a family member or friend. Spread the word. It really helps us grow and bring in more extraordinary guests for you guys, and we can reach more listeners. And that's it. This show is produced, hosted and edited by me, Chris Barron. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great Monday, everyone, and we will see you next week.